If not, we can pull the button. Yeah, in that spot.
At the bottom of the steps.
That's where the camera will
I know
hit.
you can see better down there, can't you?
Hi Naomi, how are you?
Just recommend using senior keys and join that
You're supposed to be doing. If I start this one, I'm gonna have to use these at all. Not on walks, not on anything.
You feel pretty about something, don't you?
Talk about senior discounts.
Which is good because the drink from David
What is 5:15?
Fine, how do you do it?
Yeah, sure is.
I don't think it is when they're this.
Right? Yeah.
It is now.
If not, it's on Mr.
Yeah. But not at first.
Not as little as he was and what I needed him to do at that time.
Mhm.
So it might be that if I could have gone slow.
Just need one.
Okay, now we're back. Just got my iPad out. Good job.
We ready? We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. First thing on the agenda is the approval of the May minutes. Everybody's had a chance to review them. If there's no additions or corrections, need a motion to approve. There's only two of you here to make, there's only two of you here to make motions and seconds, so yeah.
I'd make a motion to approve the
Okay.
minutes.
I'll second that motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Unfinished business, 5-year master plan.
Hello.
Hello.
We're still getting technical difficulties here. Okay, this is a test. We'll see if
Maybe not, huh?
this- Okay, I'm gonna have to talk really loud because this doesn't work, correct?
It's on.
Yeah, it does. There we go. Bonus.
You're good.
Hello.
Just have to talk right into it.
So, tonight what I'm going to do is, I know that you are aware that we've run the main survey, which we closed on June 1st. So we left it open for almost 6 weeks and provided various different opportunities, which it was publicized in social media. We sent out, it was listed on every city website, and then some. Sheila could probably even, I know you sent it out to all your different I started to say vendors, but all your various different media outlets would probably be
Right.
the best way to put it.
Yes.
So we had, on a good day here, let's see if we can get this to really work. There we go. So we had 430 responses. That includes the opportunity that was both, it was an online survey, but we had probably almost 60 to 70 that were done by hand, and so then we hand went in, back in, and put all that information so we could tabulate everything. So what I'm going to do tonight is walk you through some of the results. I don't think Larry and I have talked about it since we've got that all in here in the last 2 weeks. There was nothing that really surprised us, and fairly consistent. So just so that you're aware of some of the other things that we did, we sent out a focus group survey and asked questions of the various leadership, much like we talked about in the last meeting. What do we do well? What are things that we could do better in the future? We asked them for general input about programs, et cetera. We did the same thing with staff. We did the same thing with you all at the last park board meeting. So we did that. We got about, I believe it was 6 or 7 of those back out of 40 we sent out. We've also asked for input from our campground stakeholders over at Pike Lake. And we reached out to the Rarick Park neighbors and neighborhood, since that's a park that we've highlighted that we know we want to do some improvements to get some input from them. So this particular one is a survey, the one that the public has had an opportunity to give us input in, really relates to the park system as a whole. And what I tried to do was go through, and I'm not sure what's going on with my one graphic there. So the green says means that that's the majority of people that said yes. The blue indicates people that were a negative response to adding the various different categories. And as you can see, consistent with what the parks staff was hearing, that kayak rentals and paddleboard rentals were something that were really of high interest to your residents and users. And I know that Larry's even already pursued that, and they're already working on getting that done yet still this year, I believe, with some special rental kiosks. Outdoor exercise, I thought it was kind of interesting. The greenhouse education was something that obviously had fairly high use, and something really simple such as cornhole boards. So it ranged from something that could be really expensive to something that was really inexpensive, but I will also tell you that almost everybody answered that question. There are some questions where people skipped and only answered one thing on the entire survey. There were others that answered every single question, and then there were some that I couldn't even figure out what they were trying to tell me because they only wrote in answers instead of answering the questions at hand. So, but that's normal. We have that happen all the time. The next question was just to ask about the public's input on things that they felt needed to be improved within the city. Staff had already highlighted some things that they knew were of interest and concern, and they wanted to give the general public as a whole an opportunity to feedback. Again, improving the swimming beach and picnic shelters were really the top two, and then not far behind were the basketball courts and tennis courts. So. And then we heard a lot of comments. The last question really was an open-ended question. Tell us anything else you want to tell us. So we heard a lot about improving the skateboard park or moving it, adding disc golf opportunities, and again, picnic shelters, courts. There was a lot of family-focused things that we got as comments, all things that I know you as a board have heard before, but we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to the end. The third one was a quite open-ended question that just asked, are there any areas that are lacking parks or recreation facilities or opportunities? This one actually kind of cracked me up because there were a lot of really sidebar comments like we need a new shopping center or a grocery store on the south side, and I was scratching my head going, don't doubt that we need that in the community, but that's not exactly a park function. But really there were a handful of people that just talked about trails in the community, dog parks, and really lots of comments of none that I could think of, but even more so overwhelmingly positive about the park department, a beautiful park system, and truly appreciative of the efforts of the park department. So, and again, as you can kind of see there were a handful that were pickleball courts, and whenever I read pickleball courts, it was almost always consistent with people that wanted pickleball courts to be the #1 focus as well. So there was no surprise that would be consistent and written in on an open-ended question. This one talked about the commitment to greenways. Again, over the top support for greenways. The handful of others that I got were, I walk my dog. So kind of fell really in what would have been yes. But because they decided to write in, they didn't want to call that exercise or fitness. They wanted to be really specific about how they were using the trail. And then there were a handful of comments about that they actually used it as their means of transportation to get to and from, various locations. And in some cases, people that couldn't drive, so they used the trails as a connector, which is obviously makes those of us who do trail work really happy when we hear those things. So. The main purpose, I use the Warsaw Trail System again, consistency across the board, and in some cases people voted for all three. So that kind of skewed the leisure and recreation versus fitness and wellness a little bit, but we wanted to make sure we didn't leave somebody without an opportunity to tell us how they felt about trails. So, and it was interesting to say that I'd say about 10% answered the first question, but they did not answer this question related to trails. So I thought that was kind of interesting. This particular question, I don't know how to get, this one asked about parks and programs. And this one was a little hard to see because I couldn't separate the graphs, but basically it was again a high or a low, and it related to age groups of what you thought were important to provide within the system. So if you have a really, if the green bar is off the charts, consistently, again, family-focused, young kids, teenagers, family, special events was the other one that really was pretty big, and family programs. There wasn't anything that was really, it was interesting to watch the college and the young adult groups as how that split out, but that was almost a 50-50. People didn't think that was as important as others. So, and some people only marked one. Some people answered every line, either high or low. So it was interesting to see where somebody's focus was. If they were consistent and they wanted family, then they hit everything that would have related to a family. If they weren't interested in family, but they didn't answer every single bar across. So always interesting to see kind of how people go about discerning how they're going to respond to a question. I don't think there was any real surprise there. We had talked internally with staff about opportunities for programming and just knowing, especially with virtual and things coming back in live event, that family and different things for seniors and teenagers, you know, all those things were really important, and having new ideas was something that really wanted to consider for the future. This one, again, no real surprise here. This just showed from kind of high to low where people, how they hear about events. Ink-free news by far and away was the main one, and it was interesting to me that more of it wasn't social media, so it was just interesting how that kind of played out. But a lot of people wrote in, it was funny, a lot of people would write in something that was an option for a choice. They just didn't select it, so I counted that then as a selection for that individual. And there were a lot of people that wrote in additional comments, word of mouth, word of mouth, word of mouth, somebody they knew. So I think it just shows, I think, the wide range of ways that you attempt to get the word out about programs and events is definitely working. So sometimes I'll get somebody, well, I don't ever hear anything about events. That was not the case here at all. So again, this was about finding out what programs and activities, especially existing facilities, that were important. And graphically, I thought this kind of showed that there was no surprise to me that walking, biking trails by far and away was the top. That is pretty consistent in most places that I've had the opportunity to be involved with. Special events, concerts, playgrounds, picnic shelters and areas. And again, fitness, arts and craft. And then as you go down, some of the other ones are just more outdoor activities that people may or may not participate in. But especially your family and multi-generational activities were at the top of the list. This question is always an interesting one. How do you think you should pay for improvements? No real surprise there. Hands in a way, depends on the investment. Were you talking a really large number or a small number? There were a lot of positive comments that they appreciated the fact that the department makes an effort to go after grants and different funding sources to augment the city budget, and they understand that in some cases, larger bond projects are for the bigger type expenses and projects of a new facility or expanding an existing facility. And this kind of played out then when we asked them to rank how to use park funds, renovation of existing, development of new programs, and then it was almost neck and neck. Really, that is almost a handful of votes separating the next three really of park maintenance, construction of new facilities, renovation of Center Lake, and purchase a new park plan. And then again, it gets a little confusing when you're trying to just list things out. So the beauty of a word cloud kind of shows you the items that were consistently added. There, again, adding new parks I thought was interesting in areas those people had specific ideas of what side of town that should be on. Pickleball courts were consistent with anybody that pickleball was important to. It was everywhere on their survey. So and that's no surprise. That's their focus. Dog friendly, trails, obviously, and I think things that you were probably already aware of, programs, facilities. Lots of people love Center Lake, so there were a lot of really positive comments that, you know, as funds available to renovate and keep adding things. And again, Larry and I talked, there wasn't anything that was too much of a surprise. And there were a handful of people that made comments, and we finally figured out that they were really referring to Wyona Lake and not to Warsaw, so they were confused. There were several that there's some confusion about what parks are really City of Warsaw. And some people are really confused and think that you're in charge of the entire county. So that's never a surprise, especially when there aren't as many countywide parks, and you're close to a lot of state parks as well. This one was just about understanding how they can better maintenance practices. Did they agree or disagree? Just about everybody across the board was exceptionally positive. It was intriguing. For the most part, everybody felt pretty fairly safe. There were a handful, again, of responses, and a couple people said it was interesting. One of the two that said, "Tell us where or why you feel unsafe," and they said, "Well, I never used the park," so I was scratching my head and going, well, okay, you might have been better off just skipping that question. So those were sometimes, I think, an interpretation. If they didn't know, we left the option for them to skip it, and then they wrote in, "Well, I really don't know because I don't use the park." So, again, the same thing across the board. Very, very positive comments across the board about park administration. Ironically, question 14 and 15 are identical, except one was park maintenance and one was park administration. And the bar charts don't show up the same way because they're really funky. So bottom line, again, just across the board, positive comments. Again, out of 430, roughly 286 people answered the question. Again, there were a lot of people, if they had to check off too many things, then they just skipped the question, which is, again, not unusual. We just wanted to kind of know where people lived. And as you can see, and it's a little hard to see down at the bottom if you look at the back screen, I actually put the chart so you could see that roughly, you know, the people that lived outside of city limits, a family household, were neck and neck with city adult only in responses. But we had roughly 200 people from within city limits that filled out the survey. The rest were either in Wayne Township or outside of the county. And that was a little bit consistent too with when we saw some of the questions we asked on the Pike Lake Campground. How many of them were outside of Warsaw, and then asked them what county they were from if they weren't from here. And there were probably at least 18, 20 that were from outside of Kosciuszko County, and some were as far away as Michigan and Florida who come back intentionally to stay here, which I truly believe is quite the compliment. So they found places, and the Pike Lake comments just about how friendly people are, how great the staff is, the responsiveness was hands down across the board. Probably one of the best campground surveys results ever come back. Usually they tend to be not on the positive side. So that is the really quick recap. The last question dealt with, we had almost out of the 430, 180 people comment. But when we asked them, just open it, you know, if there's anything you want to tell us, share. Some people reiterated pickleball courts, dog parks, whatever their specific area of interest was. And there were probably, I'd say almost 30 to 40% of the comments were just, again, how great the park staff was, what an amazing job they do with the number of parks and the type of parks. So just overwhelming support in general for the department. I want to give you a chance to ask any questions, and then I'll talk a little bit about next steps, what the staff and I will be working on next, if any of you have any questions.
Anybody have anything?
Okay, well then, I'll be really quick. From here, we'll take all this information, all the public input from all the various surveys. We'll dovetail that with what staff and I have already looked at are things that we know need to be done, and then how that plays into areas of interest that we know the public has, to make sure that we're addressing some, some of those really important needs, issues, and wants. In some cases, they're already knee-deep in it, for example, like the paddle boat or the kayak kiosk, and some of those they've already directly responded to, and those are already in the works. But now what we'll do is take that information and start to synthesize that and start to make a priority list. And then the park staff and I will work to figure out, then the priority list, we'll start assigning kind of what are some of the costs related to that, and then we'll come back and present that and kind of just start to really give you all the behind-the-scenes details. It relates to just what's in the park master plan, which I did some of that the last time, so I didn't have to do the whole thing every time for you. But so we've kind of built the case. We'll talk about population projections, the trends that you'll see, and that will be in our August meeting. So I look forward to seeing. If you have any questions before then, as always, please don't hesitate to reach out to Larry and staff, and I'll be happy to answer anything.
I just have one quick observation.
Sure.
I didn't see where, when you ask how people use the parks or the campground, that you had swimming down.
They wrote in swimming, and that was one of the things that people commented in the other. It was not because you already had swimming. There were a handful, I don't remember exactly how many comments. There were some people who really wanted to see a really large indoor-outdoor aquatic center pool.
Okay.
I mean, they wanted, and they gave examples of where you could go find one, which is, and there were some people also that talked about in the same token with an indoor-outdoor pool kind of facility. Then some of them just talked about having access to use the lake if they were a non-resident that lived on a lake and didn't own a boat.
Right, yeah, because I was thinking when I was a kid, my dad worked at Zimmer, and our biggest treat was to get to come for the day to work, and he'd drop us at Center Lake because he was right there.
Right across the way.
And we got to swim all day. That was like major in our lives. But I know for a lot of kids that the swimming access is a big deal that they can get to. So just in the future, it might be good, since that's a unique characteristic of our town, to add swimming or use of beaches to the list of activities that people are interested in and that are important to them, just so we can get a feel of
sure.
that. And because we do spend a lot of our, not a lot, but I mean, we spend money and time there. Well, I guess a lot, actually. And so we, want to make sure we're getting a good return for our investment as well.
I think there were a lot of people that, if they talked about swimming, they mentioned it while they were boating or whatever. And in part, that's because I'm thinking of the campground survey that several
Yeah.
people talked about. A lot of the reason they came here was because they liked this campground because they could also swim in the lake.
Right.
So, and then the fact that the lake was open for other people to use as well. So, and they appreciated that there was more than one place to go as well. You could go over to Center Lake or Pike Lake, and there was more to do than just being in the campground.
Because I know that's been a real commitment of the Parks Department always, is to provide access to the public that doesn't live on a lake, that they can enjoy our lakes.
Oh,
So,
that makes total sense.
Do you recall any comments regarding winter activities? I do know I think
There
was
were one or two that, and they weren't really in this survey. There was one or two that mentioned it in the focus group survey, and staff mentioned it. But it was intriguing to me that really there weren't, usually that's a fairly standard comment you'll hear, and I really didn't hear that. So I never know quite what to make of that. Sometimes it means there's enough other things going on between the schools and churches and, different community resources. But there really weren't many comments about it, other than a couple of the campers wanted you to keep the campground open
Yeah.
a whole lot longer.
Okay. Thank you.
You're very welcome, my
Thanks,
pleasure.
Deb.
Okay, on to new business. First thing is budgets.
All right, we might as well start with the 204 general budget here. If everybody's got that ready. start with I look on the explanatory sheet. It's kind of easier to follow there, but salaries and wages, we were asked to put a 3.5% increase in there. So that reflects the $1,087,000 there. Insurance, we were asked to put a 12% increase there. So when you raise the salaries and wages, of course, it affects your perf and FICA. So overall, there was an 11% increase of $6,901,000 there for that. That's kind of all set by the wage council, and we go from there. So I don't have much to do with that. So typically, there's a cut for the insurance, but we put that in there just in case the insurance rates go up. But usually, that's a line one cut. So other personal services, that's our cell phones for the 5 of us that have them. It's the electrician, Chris, Sean, Sheila, and myself. So that stayed the same. So it's 11% increase in the total personal services to $1,780,000. So then we get to the supplies. Office supplies, we've kept that the same, no increase on that. Operating supplies, there again, we've got, the supplies on everything are going up this year. I mean, we were talking before the meeting, a typical 2x4 that was $3 is now $10. I mean, just everything has went sky high on us. So we've increased that by a few $1,000s. So that brings it up to a 3% increase to $104,800. But that includes, supplies for all the parks, the downtown, flower beds, recreation, aquatics, skate park operating supplies, things of that sort. Then we get to repairs and maintenance supplies. We've got the ongoing supplies there at 78.2, the Greenway Trail. We always put $5,000 in there just in case we've got to do a board repair or anything like that on there, which seems to be some every year. Playground wood fiber for all the parks. We top that off every year to keep the fall protection where it should be. Something new in here is the resurfacing of the Pike Lake Beach parking lot. That would be for the materials only. We would use the street department to use their paver. I've coordinated with Dustin. If this is approved, he's worked that into his schedule for next year. So I don't know if most of you have driven out there, but it's getting pretty bad. It's up and down and cracky and everything else. So, and then skate park repair material, $2,000. So the increase is 61% to that category, but that's due to the $100,000 project at Pike Lake for a total of $192,000. Other supplies, that's just meals for snow removal if we would ever need that. We haven't needed it for the past 5-6 years, but there's been years where we got buried in snow, and we've had guys work around the clock, so we feed them, but very rarely do we use it. So overall, it's an increase of 33% in that category, and of course that's due to the $100,000 beach parking lot for a total of $289,500 for total supplies.
Is that on our 5-year plan to do that about now? I was thinking it was,
Yes,
yeah.
it is. Yep. Any questions in supplies? Anybody else got any question on that? All right, we'll move over to other services and charges. Professional services, of course, are janitorial for the pavilion floor and the Pete Thorne Center. That stayed the same. Our lake associations, we contribute $2,500 to each of the associations there. Lake and Tree Service, that's for Kittyland, McKinley Park, Kittyland. Also, we have treatment for the Cotney scale at the campgrounds, Pike Lake Beach and Center Lake Beach. So, legal fees, the same. Geese removal, Central Park cameras, inspections for the bucket truck, the hoist at Glover, and the shop hoist. Those are yearly inspections that we have to have. Water testing now comes out of our budget instead of the council budget. Of course, our ice strike lightning detection system that's been getting a good use here lately. So the SANS maintenance agreements for our new copier, and then the recreation stuff there. So a 20% decrease in that category, $74,300. And one of that is because we had the 5-year master plan in there last year. That's the decrease there. Communications and transportation, this is a category where we've taken all of our stuff, like our Right Stuff, our MetroNet, our anything that's like that, or our Google, anything like that, they're going to pay that out of the council budget. So all the departments are taking that out and putting it in the council budget. So the only thing we've got left in this category are just travel expenses, postage, freight, some transportation for hotel expenses through the rec department. So we're at $6,000 in this category, so it's an 84% decrease in that category. Printing and advertising, that is a 0% increase in that. We're keeping that the same. Insurance, we've got the insurance cost for this year, and we still feel that we have the adequate amount in there, so it's a 0% increase for that. That's for our facilities and grounds. Utility, we're going to hold the line there. We've had a little bit of an abundance the last couple of years, but this year, if we ever get into a drought situation where we've got to run the irrigation more, or if we get into situations where we have a really cold winter, which we really haven't had, we've got that. We've also got the Buffalo Street lights, the new well pump for the interactive fountain, things of like that. They're kind of unknowns right now, so I feel comfortable where we're at, keeping it there, but that's something we're going to have to watch for the 2023 budget. But repairs and maintenance, these are things contractual to our buildings and structures, pest control, the suppression system at Pete Thorne that we have to have, contractual for the plants and the urns at Central Park that we've did for the past probably 20 years. Contractual sound and stage for the 3 major concerts that we hope to return in 2022. Something we put in here is the Central Park East shelter parking lot to raise the curb and do the asphalt there. If you remember right, last year we did the Indiana Street parking lot. Fendon Brown is scheduled to do the west parking lot this year. So if we do the east parking lot, we'll have all that back up to where it should be. Block repairs, always the plaza. We're always having, settling there that we've got to fix. So we always keep that in there. So the increase there is a 47% increase, but that is due to the $40,000 parking lot and curb project at Central Park. Rentals, we've kept that the same. That's our uniforms and towels, porta pots for hire and manned skate park, and of course some recreational thing there. Other services and charges, we've kept that the same, no increase in there. Of course, that's got the fireworks payment in there, the landfill, employee training, of course our Homeland Security permits that we have to rent our pavilion, Fireman's Nye, the pavilion, the Pete Thorne Center, and of course the Glover for our concerts. And then we've got the same amount that we had last year for our musicians. We had a couple good ones lined up. I wish we could have had them, but Jimmy Allen, he was going to be a big hit for the country. I just saw him on the Garth Brooks special the other night. It'd been nice to have him, but it just didn't work out. So overall, it's $534,800, which is a 2% decrease from last year. So then we get to the capital outlays, something we didn't have in there last year, but we've got in for this year our new park office maintenance facility. We're looking to, depending on the price of what that price comes in at, putting some money up front for that, and then possibly doing a 10-year mortgage for $100,000 a year. So that's what we've budgeted that in there for. We're getting close to knowing the guaranteed maximum price on that, and it's kind of a scary thing because materials are going skyrocketing right now. So we're hoping it comes in where we think it is, but you just never know. So, but they're getting real close to that. So in the next couple of weeks, we ought to know where that's at and what that project's going to cost. So that's a new one we didn't have in our budget last year, $100,000. But Machinery and equipment, the new pickup truck replacing our 10-year-old truck. That's in our 10-year maintenance plan. Upgrade the Bobcat that we do every year. The Rarick Park equipment, we found out in our surveys there, maybe a full-blown playground isn't the thing they want to see over there. They like to see a walking trail around there with some benches, some swing sets, just an occasional gazebo or an occasional piece on the side of the sidewalks. That's the feedback we're getting from over there, as opposed to just a big playground structure. So, I think maybe, by going by the surveys and doing something different, maybe we can get people to use that park a little more. So, riding mower, that's our annual 4-year replacement. The Mana Skate Park, this is something that we tried to get donations to have that match. Of course, with the COVID, Sheila had some problems getting that match. We talked to Joe about this, and we feel that we put this in our budget. If we would get the $250,000 DNR grant, we've got $150,000 from the K-21 that's already there, so we had to come up with $100,000. We've got $2,000 pledged right now. So we had to put this $92,000 in there, along with our $6,000 for the skate park replacement ramp, so that we put in there. But we'll know August, September of this year whether that grant comes or not, and if not, we'll cut that out. But we will possibly need some of those funds just to repair what we've got if the grant doesn't come through, because we're getting a lot of aging underneath those ramps where the two befores just need replacing. So potentially we would ask K-21 to help us on that as well. But so that's why that's in there. So it makes it a 52% increase just to have that $92,000 in there, and the $100,000 for the park office building. So the total capital outlays is $297,400, which is a 120% increase due to the building payment and the skate park relocation. So overall, our total proposed budget is $2,910,700. As you can see, that's a 13% increase due to 4 major things here: the Pike Lake Park paving, the payment for the new office garage, and the relocation for the skate park grant match, and then our personal services was up $109,000. So that's pretty much our increase right there in those 4 things from last year. Other than that, we've held the line pretty close and been pretty frugal. So if there's any questions on any of that, I'll try to answer them.
Anybody have anything? Any questions? If
Do you
not,
want these approved?
Yes.
Individually?
individually, yeah.
I'd move to accept the 204 budget as presented.
A second.
We have a motion and second to accept this budget. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
All right, we'll move over to the 211, the parks non-reverting. This is the budget that Sheila runs all of her programs out, or a lot of her programs out of. We've increased a little bit on the operating supplies and the other supplies. I think we put $1,000 more in each one of those to bring that up to $13,250. It was $11,250 last year, but again, we're anticipating the supplies cost of that. And then the printing and advertising and other services charges are the same, the $7,100 there. We have $43,430 in this fund, and we're asking to budget $20,350 out of that. So it's really a $2,000 increase. It says 11%, but it's really a $2,000 increase.
Yeah.
Any questions on that?
I think it would be important to note there too that they're considering what we were able to do online this last year, and maybe being able to continue to offer some things like that for people that are working and can't get to the programs during the daytime. So that would incur possibly a little bit more expense, but I think it's definitely worth it with participation. And I noticed just working in the Imagination Station, that people are able to come in the summer, maybe that are off, like teachers with their children or something, that participated all throughout the year online. So I know they're looking at keeping some of those things going. I mean, a lesson learned from COVID, I guess. And so I think it's well worth the investment to keep some of those things going.
We ran into that, like you said, at the last program, but the problem we have is we're trying to do some of that, but the problem we have is personnel to do both.
Right.
And we run into that, but if we get in a situation where we have personnel and time to do that, we might offer some of that. But we're trying to get back to some normalcy and get people to come to the parks. But
Right.
you're absolutely right. People love that, and people, you know, they can't get away to bring their kids to those programs. They would like to see us do some of that. So we will look at it, and as long as our staff has time, we'll look at doing something like that.
Any more questions or comments? If not, we need a motion to approve the 211 budget.
I move we approve the 211 budget.
I'll second.
Have a motion and second to approve the 211 budget. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. You're still up.
I'm still up. So trying to get my papers apart here. The 403 non-reverting capital fund, we didn't have anything in that budget last year. This is a fund that was for the Nye and Fireman's building, but after researching it a little bit, it can be used for our kayak kiosks as well. So the revenue from those, once they're established and get going, will be deposited into this fund, and we'll be able to use that fund to replace our kayaks, our life jackets, our paddles, and also expand on the program. As you well know, we have 10 paddle boards. We would like to, if the kayak lockers go well, we would like to have the lockers built for our paddle boards, which we already have the equipment, and we would put those in there. So this is something, a means to make that happen without relying on grants and using that revenue. This is something that the revenue goes in, but every year to do that, we've got to come back and ask to put in this budget. So it's not like we're getting the revenue and we can spend it right away. It's got to be put in the appropriation, and then it has to be budgeted. So we'd like to put $30,000 in this, anticipating that we'll have a replacement for our kayaks after they're used, and also to the possibility of expanding the program to get more things on the lake, as our surveys showed. So we have $73,297 in that fund right now. So we're proposing to budget $30,000 of that for the replacements and the expansion of the program. Any questions on that?
If not, we need a motion to approve the 403 budget.
Motion to approve the 403 budget as is.
Need a second?
Second.
Have motion and second for the 403 budget. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
All right, thank you.
Question, and this might be to Diane, maybe, the COVID money that's coming back to the city, do we know, are there any figures yet or estimates?
I don't know if there's figures or estimates, but we just all had a department head meeting of the pieces of the pie that we can go after. So if anything pertained to our department to go after, most of it was through the wastewater, sewage, street department, things of that sort. But we've looked at any possible source to get that refund. Now, the one portion that we may get back is revenue loss. We had to do a report on our revenue loss through COVID. So those are some funds that we may see some return on.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is the maintenance report.
Okay, yeah, so we wrapped up planting all the flowers in the parks the week after our last meeting. We also had all the buoys and ropes for the swimming areas at both lakes before Memorial Day. And we've been running the Barber surf rake and blowing the sidewalks daily since then as well. We were able to top off all of our playgrounds with engineered wood fiber, except for Kerr Park, which is currently under construction. We're in the full swing of table deliveries, mowing, weeding the parks and trails. Diane, like you said, we're getting there on the other end of the trail. We'll have that wrapped up probably this week. We've completed the construction of both playgrounds at Kerr Park. We're currently installing the engineered wood fiber over there. We decided we were able to borrow a couple dump trucks from Dustin down at the street department, and we're hauling our own engineered wood fiber due to the driver shortage up there. So we hauled all day today, started filling. We'll probably haul all day tomorrow, and hopefully at least the playgrounds will be playable by this weekend is my goal. We'll still have a lot of grade work and seating and a couple pads for benches over there to be wrapped up, but I think we're in really good shape right now.
Yeah, just to touch on that, we got word today that since Wabash Valley left Silver Lake, they've relocated. I don't know what state they're in now, but we're having trouble getting our benches, and our benches for that back playground aren't due to ship until July 19th. So like Sean said, we're going to put the pads in, and when they come, they're surface mount, so we'll be able to anchor them right down. But we definitely want to get that done and get it all seated and everything, and have a ribbon cutting as soon as possible. So.
Yep. And I think that about wraps up everything.
That's a lot of playground equipment
That's
down there.
a lot of playground
Thing is
equipment.
huge.
I'm really glad it's getting filled. As I drive by there a few times a day, and I was just, now that the kids are out of school, concerned
Yeah.
about kids getting in there without there being the
Right.
underlying.
Well, I would have hated it because their estimated delivery on the wood fiber was June 28th, I believe. And I would have hated to just see that there, unable to be used for 2 weeks. So
Right.
luckily Dustin Down Street Department, he's offered the trucks, and we have a couple CDL drivers that can drive them. So we're hauling our own.
Where are you hauling it from?
Shipshawana,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Recreation report.
So we are right in the middle of everything going on. Everything has started back up. Just as a reminder, we are having everything back in person except the 3 large concerts, the Rock, the Blues, and the Country. So we've had kids in the building, we've had kids outside, and it's so good to see their little faces, and they're so excited, and they're so, just lit up when they come and they get to see, their favorite people being Stephanie and my rec girls for those programs. So I'm really excited about that. It just kind of lifts your spirits after this last year that we've had. So we've had great attendance at our Friday night concerts we've had so far. We've been looking at some new hours for the skate park. Those will start next week. I'll get press releases out for that later in the week. Swim lessons are full for this year, which they usually fill up, but these filled up really quickly. The DNR grant for the Land and Water Conservation Fund for Manta Skate Park relocation has been submitted. So now we're just fingers crossed. So send happy thoughts for that. The lifeguards are on duty. We've got about another half of a week when we've got some vacations going on with some of the lifeguards. But after that, we should have both lakes guarded 7 days a week. So right now, Center will be guarded every day. So if we don't have enough guards to cover, we always cover Center first because it is busier than Pike. But after about another half a week, we should be able to have both lakes guarded 7 days a week. One thing, we've heard some comments in the last couple weeks about people not knowing about events going on. And I'm glad actually that Deb mentioned this as part of the report and part of the survey results. I just want to kind of touch on some places where you can find our events that we do pay to advertise those. So we do have the City of Warsaw website, warsaw.in.gov. We do Facebook and Instagram. We do Times Union. We do Ink Free. We do all of the local radio stations being WRSW, Willie 103.5, News Now Warsaw, Oldies 101, and Z93. We do the Lake City Saver. We do the rec guide that we put together. We are digital only this year, but there are a few copies that I've made that you can't pick up in the office. So if there is someone out there who wants a physical copy, come get one of those from our office for yourself. I keep hearing that people don't know what's going on. It's out there.
Yeah.
It's out there, look for it. So
The digital
And it's on your
marquee as well.
sign at Central
And,
Park.
oh, yes, and the digital marquee
Yeah, it's all
out
over
here
there,
and at Central Park. So I'm sure I've missed some. We also do an email newsletter, so if you want to get signed up for that, you can do so on the website. You know, it's out there, but you have to have your eyes open looking for it too. So that's all I had today.
Okay. I told Larry, we made the highway report down in Indianapolis about the lifeguards.
Oh, yeah?
He had an article about it this week.
What was it? Wow.
Just how they went around, they raised the pay and paid for the certifications, and how we had lifeguards when a lot of places didn't, and let everybody know how it happened, so.
And we have TV stars.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, other matters?
I think I have everything.
Nothing? Okay. Meeting review, well, 5-year plan is on track. The budgets are done. Well, our part's done.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Need a motion to adjourn.
Go ahead, motion to adjourn.
Second? Anybody?
I would second
You want
that.
to stay? Okay. Have a motion, a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Diane, do I shut this off?
Sean, you got to be careful down there.
I shut it off.
What's that?
You got to be
Should I?
careful getting in. and
It was
out of
on
all
when I
that
came
stuff.
in.
I know.
Tear that bridge
Yeah.
down.